What's going on, everyone? Welcome back to another episode of the Figuring It Out Finance podcast, where my name is Chris Rickenbaugh, and I am your host as always. So I am documenting my journey in real estate and business while also talking about travel hacking and personal finance. So we are going to be talking a little bit about personal finance, and as you read on the title, I might be a hypocrite for this one, but we're going to get to that right after this. So you can go follow me on Figuring It Out Finance on Instagram, TikTok, and YouTube. You can go check out all those links on figuringitoutfinance.com and stay up to date with everything that I'm doing. So why am I a hypocrite? So I do talk a lot about bad debt. So if you saw my Instagram or TikTok post from today, I do talk about debt, good and bad debt. So bad debt, I would consider like credit card debt. I would consider it, financing a car debt if you're using it for your own personal uses and not for business. And then I would consider good debt, buying properties, taking on debt that actually earns you income like a rental property. So why am I a hypocrite? So I had to get a new car today. So the current one that I had, a 2015 Chevy Cruze, so I've had problems with it for probably the last 3 years. So this thing has been leaking antifreeze. It's had an oil leak for 2 years now. So we'd get it fixed, and then it'd be good, for 6 to 9 months, and all of a sudden the same thing would happen. So you get it in, get it looked at, you spend about, probably over $1,000, and then the same thing happens. So that's happened 3 years in a row, and it just started happening again. So last year was a really big one when I started a new job. That's when I started having problems with my car. So last year, I lost where I was at, but where I was at last year, so I just started this new job and I started having a ton of problems with my car. I was doing a little bit of DoorDash and putting a lot of miles on it, and all of a sudden, I started smelling the smell. Or this was 2 years ago. I started smelling it, and they said, yeah, you have an antifreeze leak. We just need to replace this, this, and this. It's like, okay, it's solid $600. I had to get all new tires replaced on it this year, too. But last year was the really big one. So I started having an antifreeze leak. I'm like, well, that's really weird. And then I pulled up to a gas station, turned on the car. It poured out like water. So ran it over to the guys at the auto shop next door. They're like, oh yeah, we just have to get this, and this part, a couple $100. Okay, sounds good. So we fixed that. Well, now we're leaking it in another area. So we had to change the whole water. We had to, I forget what it was, but we had to change that entire system out on it. Okay, we're all good on that. Now we have an oil leak. So that's another couple $100 getting that fixed, figuring out what the problem is. Finally, we get it to a point where, I'm not having problems. And then the tires start, it sounds a little bit louder. So I got all 4 tires changed out this year. And then they said wheel bearings on all of them are going to need replaced. So it's like super loud when you're driving, which they didn't know about when I sold it today. And then the check engine light comes on. So I had to buy a $600 part and then pay somebody a couple $100 to be able to fix it. And it turns out the part wasn't, the light comes on 2 days later. So he's like, all right, just go replace it. I'll fix it again. So we do that, puts it back, puts the new one in. Same thing happens 2 days later. He's like, all right, it's probably just the sensor in there. So I'm like, okay, how much is this going to cost to replace? This, and this, couple $1,000. And when I'm getting the oil changed on it the last time, he's like, I said, just give me a tally to fix all of these problems. And he's like, yeah, about $3,000. I'm like, oh my gosh. So $3,000 when for the car, I'm probably not even going to get $2,000. So tons of problems with it. I'm like, man, I'm just limping across the finish line. The goal is to sell this current house or sell the current flip. That's taken a little bit longer than we thought. So I'm like, all right, I got to do something here. So And the deal with the credit, I have I have it all financed. I have the house all financed on the credit cards for the flip, and now we're just waiting for working on getting an investor for the $40,000, or just to sell the house, which I think is what's going to end up happening. But the credit score is going to be going down on that. So what I have to do is, I'm like, man, if I don't do it now, I'm going to be in a lower credit score bracket. It's going to be a higher interest rate and a higher payment per month. So I'm like, man, I got to do it today. So yeah, the credit cards, that's really tough. I didn't want to have to do that. I'm not afraid to. I know the impact that it could have on that. But, we're in the situation looking for financing. It doesn't tear me down or put me out of the game at all. What it does is it's all financed in Amex, so it's not going to hurt me on the Chase side where I have 5 or 6 cards opened up. So, not in a good position or a great position, but I am in a position. So, that part of it sucks for me. But as for the car, if I don't do it now, then it's going to impact me a little bit later, and then the car might break down. So I had to end up trading it in for $1,000 and buying a car that was about $17,000. So we knocked him down another $500. I said, all right, if you can get me down to this number, we can do this today. He's like, all right. So he weirdly came back and found, we found a $500 discount. That gets you to your number. Interesting. So I got them a little bit, so they don't know about all the problems going on with it. They only see a check engine light and some tire monitors. And then they found an oil leak, which took quite a bit of a chunk out of it. And then on the new car I got, I didn't see they had white tape over a small spot in the back that I guess the owner traded it in. But it's only got 27,000 miles, so we'll see what problems come up with that. But yeah, what they don't tell you is all the fees that go into trading your car in. So even though I got $1,000 off, I still had to pay, or I still owe on the car $18,000. So it's like I bought it at $17,000, but then with all the fees, it's like another $2,000. And then you trade in your car for what I thought it was going to be like $2,500, and ended up being $1,000. I really didn't argue too much. I'm like, all right, I'm tired of sitting here. Let's go in. That's probably their strategy. But that's why I feel like I'm a hypocrite having to finance that car on that. But we'll be able to get some really good tax write-offs on that car, because I'll be selling it subject to my business and just making the payments through there. So that's why I'm a hypocrite, and I'll be back again on the podcast tomorrow talking about what's going on with flip number 2 and, the strategy going forward. So thank you for tuning in, and this is Chris Rickenbaugh for the Figuring It Out Finance podcast. See you next time.